putting the right team together. Oh my, back in the 90s, there was some research done that actually showed that 7 out of 10 churches that went out and hired an architect first never built the building. And you would think churches would learn from that and understand that to the point that they would change hiring that architect and moving forward. But here we are 12, 15 years later, and it's still the same. If you go hire an architect first, there's a 70% chance you will never build that building. And there's a lot of speculation on why that is. Some of the churches I talk to, where they pull their set of plans out and brush the dust off and share it with me and say, here, 10 years ago we designed this with ABC architect and it just died. It could be related to the team. The architect maybe didn't know church that well. Typically an architect is not as concerned about fiscal responsibility as maybe a design builder who's depending on getting this to construction, and he'll over-design the project. Or he believes that you know what you need programmatic-wise, doesn't know enough about church, so whatever you tell him, which is usually a dream, he'll just incorporate to the best that he can as an artist, and it tends to be over budget. So hiring the right team, I think, is always key number one. And the right team, you should define for yourselves, but I would think it's somebody that's done church, that knows church, that's experienced in knowing the 100+ questions that would get asked in the due diligence phase, in the process phase, before line 1 is ever put to paper. And that's key when I say before line 1's put to paper, because as soon as things start to show up on paper in a graphic format, churches and leaders become emotionally involved in the project. And if it's beyond what you can afford, all of a sudden you start dreaming, well, we'll raise more money than we think, or the lender will give me more money than he normally gives other churches. And I can pick up the phone and call so-and-so, he'll grab my vision and give me an extra $100,000 or whatever. And that's almost never the case. So we want to make sure we design a realistic phase 1 that's aligned with budget, that's aligned with vision, that's aligned with mission, that's aligned with missional opportunity in your community, that's aligned with the culture and DNA of the ministry team that's in place. And once we have all that figured out and put together, then we start developing phase 1. We can add phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. We can put together a master plan. But it's very key that the first phase is in alignment with all of that stuff. And I think the team you pick and hire is key in that. Cogun also has relationships with AVL people, with capital campaign firms. AVL, for those that don't understand the acronym, I apologize for using that, audio visual lighting. But the specialty components that are key to churches. Thematic design is very big. Kids really can drive the direction a church goes. When you get the kids, sometimes they'll drag the parents who maybe aren't that excited about attending church. So if we design Disney-esque type spaces with biblical themes and really wow the kids, it's a great investment in your facility and the return is high. Beyond that, we can bring specialty consultants to help design atmosphere in spaces. A lot of churches want to create atmosphere where connections happen, and they happen intentionally, not just accidentally. And you can do that by furniture space, by colors in the room, by scents in the room. You discover, you've probably already figured out on your own that a coffee smell kind of gives you a relaxed environment and allows intentional connections to happen as people get a cup of coffee, sit down in some soft seating, and begin to share relationally, or begin to share God experience stories with one another. And so Cogun has those relationships and connections that we can pull the whole team together.